Woo! Good morning, everybody. And welcome to the Tuesday morning edition of the Off Base podcast. The podcast that is carefully crafted to remind you to suck a fat one if you think that you are the only one. Because you're not. I am your host. I am the Mountain No-Name Jackass. And it's 55 degrees in the city of Aurora at 7:54 in the a.m. on Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. Oh, getting a big yawn out the way, bitches. So, this camera angle is funny. Now, I know I got stuff to lose around here, but it's just feels like it makes me look fatter. Fucking fat piece of shit. Lose some weight. For those of you who are watching instead of just listening, I am sporting the goatee. I haven't worn one in a long time. But I was asking the kids yesterday if they liked my beard, and one of them, I can't remember, said I should wear a goatee. So I'm gonna wear it before my wife comes home on Thursday. See what happens. Chaw time. Ooh, there's the geese. They're freaking everywhere, which I don't get. Let's roll. It's a nice warm morning, everyone. Windy as all get out. It's one of the strange features here of Colorado, but I guess it's a function of the mountains. We end up getting some pretty high winds at times. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Not a fan of living in Colorado. Although the kids' schools, man, they're pretty goddamn good schools. I gotta give them that. That said, let's make our way out of here. Oh, another one! Oh, what the fuck? So, yeah. I am sticking with my plan. My plan of waking up at the same time every day. Last night was a prime example. Went to bed at about 9:30-ish. I'll say more 9:30-ish. And I initially woke up at 6. And I was like, fuck that. Stay in bed. Wake up at 5. And I did. And hopefully it's going to train me to stay asleep uninterrupted from whenever my head hits the pillow to whenever my head, another big yawn, wakes up. So I got 7 hours. And the goal is to start getting 8 on average. 8 on average. I'm telling you, and I talked about it yesterday. Over the weekend, I rewatched the Joe Rogan podcast that he had Matthew Walker, sleep expert from University of California, Berkeley, on. And the statistics that he was rattling off about what happens to the body when you do get 7 to 9 hours of sleep and when you don't get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. It is fucking phenomenal on what it can do for your health. And I never really realized it before, We didn't have the research. We didn't have the numbers. But something like there was a town in Wyoming, he said they did a study of later school start times. And obviously sleep is important for everybody, but for younger kids, I mean, you guys all have kids. You know what it's like trying to get them up for school in the morning and just how fucking bleh they are. I was like that as well. Although I shouldn't say that. I loved going to school. I was a nerd. I was a jock and a nerd. I love playing sports and I love going to school because I always wanted to show up my teachers. But anyway, it's difficult for kids to get up in the morning, especially if they are not getting enough sleep at night. Now, our kids, they do pretty goddamn good. Like I said, our night time is at about 9 o'clock, and then I get them all up around 6:30. So that's 10, 11, 12, 1. 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they get 9 to 9.5. So they're doing okay. But Matthew Walker, when he was talking about this town in Wyoming that pushed the start times for school back, it was a little over an hour. They saw a 300-point increase in SAT scores from the prior year to the year that they did that. Pretty fucking phenomenal on what sleep does. And you know, he also talked about there's a ton of shit that he talked about, obviously, but some of the stuff that just is coming into my brain. One of them had to do with Thomas Edison and the invention of the light bulb and how detrimental that is for sleep health, because by electrifying our house at night, what we're basically doing is simulating what the day should be. That was a horrible way for me to phrase that. We're basically just extending the amount of light that should be going on during the day. So his recommendation is, look, once that sun goes down, you should dim the lights in your house by like 50% to start to prepare your body to get ready to go to bed. You don't want to have all these tons of bright lights going on everywhere. That's detrimental, because there are receptors and chemicals in the eyeballs that trigger the brain to say, oh, hey, it's not time to go to sleep yet. It's time to stay awake. So I forget what the chemical is. I think it's melatonin. It's either melatonin or melanin. One of those is for the skin, and one of them keeps you awake longer. I don't remember which is which, but just everything that he was saying, all the examples, all these statistics, they just make such good common sense. And for a dumb jackass like me, who is very stubborn in the way in which I process information, like if something gets into my head, I'm usually very skeptical, but if something gets into my head a certain way, it's hard for me to undo or unlearn that which has been cemented in my brain. But as I'm getting older here, I'm finding that look, I better adapt. I'll give you a great example, and I told this story before on the podcast. My 2 podcast listeners will remember this from last year. It has to do with me and my relationship with Afrin, which is the nasal spray, right? I'd never taken Afrin before in my life, and we were in Alaska, and I got a cold. And, you know, half my nose was stuffed up for like 3 days, 4 days. Horrible. I had horrible sleep patterns. I was getting up all during the night. I was just moping around the house. And my wife was like, why don't you just take Afrin? I was like, I don't need Afrin. That stuff doesn't work. Never tried it before, right? But just immediately skeptical that this isn't going to work. And it's going on for 3 days, 4 days. And finally, my wife, I think, tells the story better. She remembers it better than I do. Finally, after like 3-4 days, I was like, fine, I'll try your Afrin. And then I tried it, and immediately, those of you who have taken Afrin know that your nose just immediately goes like that, and you can breathe. And I was like, oh my God, this stuff is awesome. Now, what's even funnier about that story is that 2 months later, I got another cold and refused to take Afrin again for 2 to 3 days. Because for some reason, it was wired in my brain that this stuff isn't going to work. Yeah, I think it has to do a lot with my parents. In particular, my mother. My parents aren't college educated, but they're wise in all kinds of things. But there are a lot of things that my mother will just dismiss because she thinks she knows better. And I'm not saying anything, I'm not trying to talk bad about her or disparage her, but she's just funny like that. Like, she's been doing something the same way for, it's going to be 81 this year. And you could say something like, "Oh, Mom," like when she cuts vegetables, and she uses a steak knife to cut vegetables. And that's what I thought people used, because that's what I saw my mom use growing up all the time. She would use a steak knife to cut an onion, to cut a carrot, whatever. Didn't matter what it was. And finally, I got older, and somebody introduced me to, a kitchen knife, a nice long kitchen knife like that, a good 8, 10, 12 incher. All of a sudden, I started slicing vegetables with that, and you're like, oh my God, this is so much easier. Then we go back home, my brother and my sister and I, we're like, Mom, and she has like larger kitchen knives in her kitchen. She never uses them. She uses steak knives. And I'm talking not like the good steak knives that you get at a restaurant. I'm talking like the steak knives that you would buy, like a 8-piece set for your home, during the week. Something like that. Just something that has like a serrated edge. It's maybe about, the blade is maybe about that long, and it's got the handle on it. So when we went home, and we were encouraging her, hey, just use your kitchen knife to cut the vegetables. It's so much easier. Oh, okay. And then she doesn't do it. She still to this day. So I think that's where I get a lot of it from. Is that over the fact I have learned of ways to do things better over the years. But then you have my mother who insists on doing them her way. I think that's where a lot of it comes from. I have insistence on doing things my way. But I think I've started to become a whole hell of a lot more flexible now that I have children. What do you think? Do you guys do the same thing? Or have you done the same thing? In other words, become more flexible now that you have children? You kind of have to be, man, because you kind of got to see things from different angles. Not just children, but, having a spouse as well. You got to be able to see things from the other person's perspective, or else you're not going to get along. Can't be my way or the highway anymore. And it's so tough when you're in the heat of an argument to stop, take a breath, try to see things from the other person's perspective, or find out from them, hey, how are you seeing this? It's so funny. One of the biggest things that people focus on when they get into arguments is just focusing on the facts. And the funny thing about it is that the facts from one person's angle are colored differently than the facts from the other person's angle. So now you got to try to figure that out. And the only way you figure that out is you talk about how it made you feel. It's very interesting. I got to remember that. Because my wife and I have been doing really, really well in our relationship. Probably every 1 to 2 months something comes up. And it's not anything major. It's usually something minor that if we just communicated a little bit better, then we're in good shape. Some of the fights that we have to do with the fact that, we might not have had sex like in a week or 2 weeks. I'm like, and it comes out in a shitty way. Then all of a sudden we have sex and back on it. Back on the road to bliss. So I also encourage my 2 podcast listeners to have as much sex as possible. Number 1, it feels great. And 2, it's good for the relationship. Anywho. So all that came from my discussion of sleep. Now, one day does not make a trend. So, I got to be doing the same thing every day. Oh, look at this. All the cows. Another yawn. All the cows are right here. Right by the fence. They're only about 20, 30 feet away from me. Eating their breakfast. Speaking of breakfast, I'll tell you, it's interesting. I'm not feeling as hungry as I have in the past. As stepson and I continue through our journey. Like yesterday, I ate really, really good. I had keto coffee, an avocado, half an avocado, and 4 eggs for breakfast. And I had my chicken and cabbage soup for lunch. And a spoonful of peanut butter before I went to pick the kids up. So that put me at about 1,300 calories. And then I had a 10-ounce piece of salmon when I got home and finished the day at about 1,800, and I felt fine. It was good. And that's kind of where I want to be here as I start to incorporate more cardio into the mix. Somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 calories a day. And I didn't drink again. This whole not drinking thing has been great. Matthew Walker also talked about the effects of alcohol and caffeine on sleep. It's very, very fascinating stuff. And what it'll do to you and for you. So if I haven't made my pitch perfectly clear for my 2 podcast listeners, go on YouTube and search Joe Rogan, Matthew Walker. That is a phenomenal, phenomenal podcast. The importance of sleep. 7 to 9 hours. So stepson and I did hit the gym last night. We did our pull routine, P-U-L-L, not P-O-O-L. We did back, shoulders, and biceps. And shoulders are what I'm talking about. Are the shoulders the most fascinating muscle on the body for me, because there are exercises that you can do where you're pushing the weight away and activating your shoulders, and then there's exercises that you can do where you're pulling the weight towards you or pulling it against gravity and activating the shoulders. The shoulder exercises that we do on pull days are shoulder shrugs, because you're pulling the weight up against gravity, and lateral raises, lifting it that way. Which you can also do with an upright row. You're also pulling it up. And then on the push days, we do military presses. Anyway, we worked the back. We did deadlifts. My deadlifts are feeling fucking fantastic, man. Fucking fantastic. I did 85 pounds on both sides, 4 sets, 6 reps. It's 215 pounds. So going into the final week, I'm going to have 2 45-pound plates on either side doing a deadlift. It's going to be fucking great. Then we also did pull-ups. And it's so funny because on non-pull workout days, I can bang out 10 pull-ups, no problem. But on the workout days, I have a tougher time. I think I started out yesterday, we did 3 sets. I think my first set I got 9, and then I think I got 7 and 7. But it's fascinating because right before we do pull-ups, we do sit-ups right before that, and then right before the sit-ups, we do barbell curls. So it's already, the bicep is already fatigued. So I think that's probably why I can't get 10 pull-ups when I go to do them. And then, of course, we worked the biceps. We did barbell curls where you lean on the machine that locks your elbows in place. And then we just did single arm curls in a seated position. Fucking love working biceps, man. That vein pops out. The main vein. Not that main vein, you sickos. Drain the main vein. So, yeah. Taxes are almost done. I'll probably end up reviewing them at some point today. I got to call the tax center on base to see if they have any words of wisdom. But I think we're in pretty goddamn good shape as far as submitting them. And it's so funny because I don't read so good. I have a PhD, and I have a problem with reading. It takes me longer to comprehend what's on the page because I have to reread it several times. Don't know why. And there are certain pieces of literature that I really enjoy reading, like scientific papers. I used to love reading those. I love reading plays as well. But reading through the IRS documents, tax documents, whew, that's rough. I got to read through that multiple times. The jargon is just ridiculous. And there's so much of it. The tax code is so fucking long. They make it really, really difficult for people. They really do. So what I ended up doing, just to make sure that I was covering my bases, is I got smart and went on YouTube and said, okay, hey, what forms do you fill out when you sell a house? And immediately there's like fucking 15 videos of, oh, you got to fill this out. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't I come here before? This is great. So for those of you who have more complicated tax forms, just go to YouTube and type in, what forms do I need to fill out for blah, blah, blah. Or just do a Google search on that. They'll tell you. It's fucking great. So I'll review those again once we get home. Probably not right away. Probably do it like after lunch. Do the federal, the Alabama, and then I think I got to file in Colorado. I'm going to find out when I call the tax center. I hope I don't, but I think I do. My wife, for some reason, does not, keeping her residence in Florida. I still have my Florida driver's license. No, her residence is, her driver's license is in Texas. My license is from Florida, so I might be able to keep mine. I don't know for sure, but we'll see. Anyway, here we are, about to get scanned, coming back on the base. 100% ID check in progress. So let's see, we got 2 people hanging out. Morning.
Morning.
I'll see you guys later.
All
right, see you later.
You do have your one?
These guys are the best. I got a boring job. And our next door neighbor, he's in charge of missile defense for the world. It's so funny just to say that. And his wife and he will very often take meals to the security people or snacks to the security people. They're good like that. Very, very good like that. That's a good thing, everybody. All right. Here we are, back on the base. As soon as I round this corner, I'm going to see downtown Denver in the foreground and the Rocky Mountains in the background. It's a hell of a sight. And there's clouds over the mountains today, so that actually looks pretty cool. That's a very cool sight. And that's going to wrap it up for a Tuesday edition. So, everybody out there, I want you to have the best of Tuesdays. Do your best, forget the rest, and I'll smell you tomorrow.